Welcome to the Zakariya Frank Show. My goal is to help you live a healthier, more informed, and all-around better life. To do that, I'm exploring essential topics with industry experts and bringing you all sorts of helpful information. We're talking physical health, mental and emotional well-being, spirituality, relationships, philosophy, and more. Unafraid of any topic and unapologetic about the truth. If you like no-nonsense, deep and meaningful conversations, you're in the right place. There's plenty to talk about, so let's get to today's episode. Today we talk relationships, specifically marriage, specifically when they end in divorce. I'm here with the divorce daddy. After using his divorce to spark a positive transformation of himself as a man, he's formed his mission to help others do just the same. So he became a divorce coach, combining spirituality and masculinity to help men level up. And that's Jeff Kolez. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Zach. I do want to make one correction on you.
Oh, what'd I do?
I'm not divorce daddy.
Okay.
You're divorce daddy. I help you to find divorce daddy.
Interesting.
Because I believe daddy energy, and it's a little cheeky.
Let's go.
But it's something that's missing from the world. Daddy energy keeps his kids safe. He makes money. He keeps his women safe. Women want him. Men want to be him. I am not that. I mean, I am that, but I'm not divorce daddy. I want to help you find that daddy energy.
Interesting. And that daddy energy,
yeah.
How lost do you think that is within most men? Are most men or fathers embodying daddy energy? Or what do you think is the state of fatherhood in general that's going on out there?
I used to go to the park with my kids. We would, when they were younger, probably around 8 and 10. And my oldest had a friend down the street. And sometimes I would take the friend and we'd bring the dog, and it was like a whole thing. And we'd go play soccer in the field. I took that friend down to the park so many times that he said to me, or he said to my friend, my dad has never taken me to the park. But here your dad is taking us down to the park to play with us. I mean, that's daddy energy, like playing with the kids, wrestling with them, demonstrating what a good relationship is. That's daddy energy. And I think most fathers are sitting on the couch escaping. And I think that's sad.
What are they trying to escape from?
An empty life. They wake up, they're on autopilot the whole time. They wake up, they go to work, get in the car, drive to work, work their 8 hours, eat their lunch, come home, flick on the TV. I mean, I've done that myself, and I see why. It's almost like we get put on rails, and we that's what we do. And then on the weekends, we go out and escape the reality, the humdrum life, the reality. We live for the weekends, but we're not present throughout the week. Like, that's the majority of our time.
Yeah. It's certainly a shit life that I think most men are living. And so, of course, naturally, they want to escape from it. It's hard to face a unpleasant life. It's easier, and I don't even want to say easier because it's full of internal suffering, but outwardly it's easier to just hop in front of the TV and imagine and engulf yourself and immerse yourself in this fantasy world of whatever's on that screen. Whatever you're into, you can kind of attain it neurologically, like get those thoughts, get those secondhand experiences through this screen that you so desperately crave as a man, wanting adventure, wanting achievement, seeing cool things, all from your couch. And when it seems like for a lot of people, the things that they're watching are unattainable. They'll never, ever achieve that, is what they tell themselves. and what they truly feel, well, of course they're going to sit their ass there and try to absorb that. It's certainly a sad state, but that brings up the more broad question of, is it the world that's failing fathers, setting them up to live this life that's so common? Or is it fathers failing the world by behaving like this?
The world failing fathers. I think it's up to us to create our own reality. So I would say if you're not living up to who you are, that's your failing. And I know that's a hard stance, but it's meant to wake people up. I think most people are asleep. Vast majority of people are asleep. I used to be that guy who came home, like I said before, and watched TV. And, sometimes I still do. I can appreciate, a good movie every now and then. But now I find that old life so incredibly boring. Watching another life unfold in front of you, it's so boring. A friend of mine once said to me that his favorite show was the TV show 24. Do you know that? Do you know that show?
It's like one of those like crime ones, right?
Sure. I don't really know the content of it. But what he liked about it was that it takes place in real time. So each season takes place over 24 hours. And in the bottom right-hand corner, I think it's the bottom right-hand corner, it counts down the real time until 24 is over. And he said watching it, he made him realize that those seconds ticking away was his life ticking away. So it's our job to see those moments where our life ticks away and recapture it. I think we're put in situations, like I said earlier, we're on rails. We have this routine we're set to, and we can either go through life and live that life that we're put on rails for, or we can find a way out of it. And divorce for me was a giant wake-up call. And that's one of the reasons I coach divorced dads, is to wake them up. There's this opportunity. Your life just fell away. What an opportunity there is in there to reshape your life.
Yeah, it's often said, at least here in America, I don't know if it actually happens in Japan, but they say that in Japanese, the words chaos and opportunity are the same words, because from chaos comes opportunity. You need to shake things up for them to resettle in a different way. And of course, divorce can be full of chaos. I mean, you could be completely turning your life and mentality and family structures and friendship groups completely shaken up and upside down from the way that they exist and perhaps drone along for quite some time. And they have that inertia being as they are. But of course, as things are getting shaken up, if we get in the driver's seat of how they're all falling back to the ground and settling, then we can try to optimize how that is moving forward and perhaps be in a better position overall than before it was all shaken up. And so I'd love to know a bit about your personal story, and for the audience members to relate to you who perhaps might not even know or do know that they need to make a change in their life in regards to their relationship. Let's start from the beginning. And I'd love to know what your concept and construct of marriage was before you even got married, as you were forming a relationship as a man and growing up. Like, what was your concept of what it meant to be married?
I don't know. I was a man back then. I think I was a boy. And I thought, and I am struggling to answer this right now because that was a different person. I have a hard time relating with that person at all. And I can, if you're interested, I can share a picture of old Jeff.
Yeah, go for it. You have it now, or you want me to put it in post?
Like, you want me to share my screen?
Sure.
This is embarrassing.
Oh, yeah, let's see.
Give me a sec here.
Sure, sure.
All right. Oh boy.
We
This
got
isn't the
old.
one I was going to share, but whatever. I mean, that's old Jeff.
Wow.
Um, Jesus.
The energy is so different.
Yeah.
Uh, everything. Wow. And so,
So,
how do you feel when you look at that man? How do you feel towards that man?
how do I feel towards that man? I feel sorry for him. I'm mid 40s now, and I got divorced when I was 30, or I got separated when I was 36. So that was me probably around 33, 34. My 40s have been awesome. I've been living a pretty incredible life. That guy there was depressed and sad and hated his life. Um, he didn't have the experiences I have now. He was seeking, and the reason for that is he was a guy who sought comfort. He sought comfort in food and, just closing himself in and not challenging himself. Today, I get bored if I'm not challenging myself, in one day. So, what was your original question? It was
Before marriage and going into it, what was your concept of what it meant to be married and marriage as a whole?
I think I thought you pick somebody and that's it. And you grow together. And I think the white picket fence is a good image. You buy a house and then you grow old together and die. And that's it. What I realize now is that a relationship is damn hard work. And I believe there's a male dynamic and a female dynamic, and we each bring different pieces to the party. However, that's still hard. You still have to make sure that both of you are in alignment with where you're headed. So just starting with that basic idea of, do we know where we're going in general? What I realized is my ex, she sought comfort as well and simply wanted to live within her cocoon. And she didn't feel that desire to grow. And even then, even that sad guy, that picture I shared, he knew he wanted more, but didn't know how to get there. The relationship my parents modeled for me was one of one person serves the other, and it's not 50-50. Now I know it's 50-50, meaning you both bring 50% to the relationship. Well, you both bring 50% of the relationship, and both parties bring different dynamics to it. I've been together with my wife. We're not married technically, but we've been together, a long time. She brings color to the relationship that I would not have seen without her. She brings, color. I think that's the best way to describe it. And I bring, something to the relationship as well. I bring logic. I bring grounding. She brings joy and emotion. And I don't want to say chaos. That's not what I mean by that, but a little bit of randomness. Because sometimes we'll be like, we'll be chatting and she'll be like, let's go to the beach today. It's just this little bit of joy that she brings and looks for. And it's easy as a man to sit there and, I got to go to the gym. I got to work. I got to, get this done, that done, that done. having that someone there who brings that little spark of randomness and joy and color makes life worth living. But it has to be the right person. It has to be that right fit. It can't be someone who just wants to stay inside of their cocoon, because you're going to want to grow and she's going to want to stay inside her little bubble. And then that creates your chaos.
Wow, that was beautiful. That was a really beautiful way that you described male-female dynamics in a healthy way. It's like, yeah, a woman provides the whimsy, the free spirit, the airy, high energy like that, and then the man provides the container, one, for that to exist within and stay protected and flourish, and then through that kind of structured, unstructured dance, you kind of, even as a man, can get the most out of life because, yeah, head down, grind, hard logic, hit the gym, do work. Like, yeah, that's fantastic in a lot of ways. But sometimes the softer side of life, even if it's just for an evening or, for a brief moment throughout the day, it can really keep you going. It can really spur you on, We're
meant to enjoy life. And, there's a joy in grind. Don't get me wrong here. But those sparks of uncertainty, I've got tons of stories. Our love language is travel. And we just go on random adventures. We go on adventures through travel. And I've got so many stories of times where she picks up her phone, scrolls through it and says, let's go do this. And it's, I provide, like you said, the container, and she provides the little spark, the magic.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm very happy that you have that now. But to back up a little bit, and for the sake of helping people that might be in a weird scenario for themselves, I want to know a little bit more about what brought you to the here and now in the first place. And so to get into the state where you were in a marriage that was in need of divorce, what brought you into that marriage in the first place? So it's like, what brought you from, I'm in this relationship with this woman, it was going however it was going, and now it's time to get married? Like, what was the thought process of, yes, let us get married?
I think he was a very scared guy. He didn't have much value in himself, and this woman gave him attention, and so he clung on to that. And he was scared of losing her, and so he offered marriage. So it was desperation, I would say. And that's me being about as vulnerable and raw there as I can be. It was not, I'm not proud of that guy. I don't connect with him. He was not someone who put much value in himself.
Yeah. And so I guess you would say perhaps it wasn't even a good idea in the first place to go into marriage. Is that correct in those circumstances?
No. I think before a man should even consider marriage, he should really know who he is. He should have a lot of confidence in who he is. He should know his value. Marriage is going to test you. And if you don't have that certainty of who you are, know your limits, it's just going to eat you alive.
And how do you define marriage today? Because you just mentioned before a man considers marriage, the overall general concept of marriage is the, legal, go to the courthouse, have the big ceremony, get a government involvement in the relationship, etc. But then before you mentioned you're currently in this allegedly fantastic or supposedly fantastic relationship now.
Allegedly.
You're using the words wife, etc. Perhaps she uses the word husband, but you're not technically, legally, whatever, married, if I deduce that correctly. So what's your concept of what marriage even means now? And would you consider getting I guess, more conventionally married again?
That's a tough question. I think I made this decision a long time ago, and I'm open to revisiting it. But when I went through my divorce, I was like, why does it? And then the government tells you a lot when you go through a divorce. It's like suddenly you owe this person this money and this money and this, here. Basically, it took all my chips and moved it over here, and I had to start over again.
Yeah.
And I went, but this is a relationship. Why is the government involved in this? So to me, marriage in the traditional, well, in our modern sense, it means you've signed a piece of paper that forms a contract, and I don't know what exactly that contract means. I'm not a lawyer, but basically, it brings the government into your relationship, and I'm like, why does the government have any interest in my relationship? Now, I would define a marriage as a commitment to each other. And I think that's what a relationship is in general. You decide you want to be together. And I'm going to get a little philosophical here, but I think our job in life is to learn to grow in love and wisdom. And love here has a specific definition of seeing the good and the bad. And you see the good in somebody, you see the bad in somebody, and you still decide to be with them. So my definition of marriage is you've seen all the good in them, you've seen all the bad in them, you weighed that up, you've done your little mental math, and you've decided to still be with that person. There's nobody who's perfect. I know guys who are, late 30s and they're still like even 40s, and they're still looking for that perfect person. There's nobody out there who's perfect. They're always going to have, something in the good, in the bad. It's making that decision to be with the person. I would say it's only recently that we've decided to start using the W word and the H word. That's despite being together for a long time. And I think it was a conscious decision based on having a commitment to each other. But I still don't want to get the government involved in my relationship.
Yeah. What do you think? And so I can presume the answer based on everything that you just said, but a common concept that's so glamorized and purported and really propped up as the end all be all thing to strive for in a relationship or a marriage, whatever, is this concept of unconditional love. You should have unconditional love for your partner. What comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
I know there's a common saying out there that unconditional love only exists for, what is it, babies and puppies. And I think there's an element of truth to that. Unconditional love. I don't know. I've thought of it that way. It's not conditional in the sense that if you do something like everybody has their boundaries. You can still love somebody and not be with them. So I don't know that I have I don't know that I have a solid answer for that. I don't think I believe in unconditional love. It's not even on my radar. That doesn't mean that it's not. Like there would be a boundary where I would say, all right, that's enough of this relationship. We're going to go our separate ways now. And I don't know if I would not call that unconditional, or if I would call that unconditional love.
Yeah. To me, it doesn't have to be a bad thing to have conditions. People have been programmed to say, it has to be, accept them as they are, love them as they are. But to me, conditional love and recognizing the conditions and recognizing our boundaries and our standards and being able to communicate those and then having the dynamic where everyone is meeting each other's conditions. So then you can choose to be in a relationship moving forward because it meets everyone's conditions of what they are looking for. Hopefully that's a healthy thing. That's the most beautiful form of love to me. Like you were describing previously, it's, hey, I'm getting this out of this relationship and I'm going to bring you these things and you're getting these things and I'm going to do that. It's because we don't have a government contract binding us. We are bound only by our continued devotion and betterment of each other's lives. And to me, that's so much more beautiful than bounding ourselves to each other via a third-party contract, because I think a lot of the times that itself is what allows the degradation of the individuals. Because then there's not really there is a way out of staying in a good place as a man or a woman, and then they're stuck with me, and I don't think it's a conscious thing that happens most of the time, but I think having that just inherently allows people to start slipping up versus if we're constantly on our toes of, hey, I want to stay on my shit because he or she could leave me, and they should if I'm not being the best me for them. To me, that is a foundation for a true healthy relationship.
I have a couple thoughts on that. One, there's the idea that relationships go in 7-year cycles, and you decide at the beginning of that 7 years if you want to recommit to each other.
Interesting.
I like that. I like that a lot. And then I remember a guy I used to work with. The guy was absolutely ripped. And I remember him saying to me at some work function that him and his wife gift each other their attractiveness.
Yeah.
I really resonated with that as well. And that keeps you on like you're saying, keeps you on your toes.
But in a good way,
Absolutely.
In a healthy, motivating to be better way.
I don't like the idea that I think it's the easiest thing in the world to get connected and married to somebody, and then the two of you descend into hedonism together. And I think hedonism is the, how do I say this? One of the ills of our time. It's so easy to feel good, and it's a descent into hell, I think.
And so what does that look like in the realm of a relationship? Because obviously I could picture a person being hedonistic, be it a man or a woman, but what do you mean? How does the dynamic play out where a couple get married and then together slip into hedonism? What does that look like?
I think it looks like, well, we'll order Chick-fil-A tonight and we'll watch another movie, and it's in action. Or it's just feeling good together. It could be just having a bunch of drinks every night when you get home, drinks to take the edge off. It might feel, there's another concept, and I wish I draw this out. There's three different forms a relationship can take. So I want you to imagine two circles like this, overlapping, and then two circles kind of, I don't know if I'm doing a good job of two circles that are overlapping maybe 30%. The two circles that are overlapped, I think that's hedonism, because they're each looking for the other person to make them feel good. And they're spending all of their time together. Everybody knows a couple like this.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with that is you end up like this. You go from overlapping, and then you build up these resentments. Why isn't he doing this for me? If he wanted to, he would. All of those sort of silly lines. That's this. It's just said out loud, and those invariably end up. There's this pressure, and then they split apart. What I think the healthy dynamic of a relation, or the healthy example of a relationship, is you spend approximately 30% of your time together. And that looks like that Venn diagram of two overlapping circles. You have 30% of shared interests, but 70% of the time you're on your own. You're doing your own thing. You're living your life. That doesn't mean you're not living together. It doesn't mean you don't have meals together. It doesn't mean you don't travel together. It just means you have that 30% together and you're off on your own, doing your own thing 70% of the time. Now, that is the hardest, I think, type of relationship, because you're not looking for the other person to complete you. And I think that's what happens when you have those overlapping circles. You're looking for the other person to complete you. When you have that overlap, that 70%, you still have to do your own inner work. You still have to be okay on your own. My wife went away. She's Australian. She had to go back to Australia for a month to help her family out. And I was here on my own for a month, and I'm in Mexico. I don't know a ton of people here. So essentially I was on my own for a month. I have to be okay being alone. So many men I know aren't. So that's where and if you're in that type of relationship where you're overlapping, being away from your partner for a month is you'd be lost. I don't want to say, I had a couple moments where I was like, I feel really alone, but I was able to figure out what that is and work on that myself and be okay on my own.
Yeah. When we have inner work that needs doing, or we have internal traumas or trauma responses that we haven't consciously come to comprehend and then work to heal, it's a natural occurrence that we seek a partner that is often traumatized in an opposing way that creates unhealthy patterns that, I don't want to say complement as if it's a positive thing, but fit with our own trauma responses. And it's like we try to fill the void that we have with ourselves and in ourselves with that other person. And that creates so many unhealthy dynamics, because then instead of viewing that other person as another person, oftentimes we end up viewing them as that part of us that needs fixing. We see that and externalize that we need work and make them that projection. And it can often be dehumanizing to that other partner. And then, like you said, it can only result in resentment and chaos, because they are always going to be an actual other person, even if you are trying to meld and mesh. And so when we feel like we are failing ourselves, or we feel like something's not right in our life, we end up blaming that part of ourselves that is the projection upon them, instead of looking inside ourselves. And all these different things that go on when we find that that other person is behaving like another person, instead of meeting our every need and having our thoughts in their head, they should know what I want, etc. There's really no way for that to play out other than complete and utter chaos and failure of relationship. And it's such a common occurrence for people in relationships, because a lot of people are traumatized at an individual level in so many different ways, be it being failed by their parents in certain ways, or being acted upon in certain ways by their parents or otherwise. It's a very common thing for those people to then get in a relationship, feel at least what they think is love and healthy, perhaps unconditional love in quotes, for the first time, and then they just dive full on into it, and they want to be that overlapping circle with that other person because it feels so good. And I've never felt love like this. I've never felt like those missing parts of me were ever there. Now it feels like it's there. It's a very common thing to happen, and it's certainly a hard thing to break out of if you don't realize what's kind of happening as a young person, or any age, I would imagine.
I think I think I have a better answer for your question about unconditional love. I think what you're seeing, what you're calling unconditional love, is that infatuation stage. We all go through it in a relationship. Oh my God, I can't believe this is the best person in the world. And I'm going to get woo-woo here. Yin and yang, this is love. This is infatuation. You're only seeing the good side of somebody. This is resentment, where you only see the bad side of somebody. This is reality. So we all go through this stage of infatuation in a relationship, where you might call it unconditional love, but I don't think it is. It's only seeing one side of them.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's a side that we want to see, even
100%.
if that side isn't necessarily there as we are picturing it. I think a lot of times we kind of paint what we want to see and what we need in another person, and then get upset when they don't live up to perhaps those false expectations. So crazy thing, man. It's So a part of your website, as I was reviewing it, that I really liked were the tenets of divorce.
Yes.
A lot of those are very interesting to me. So I'd like to go through them and kind of get an elaboration on
Sure.
some of those mean. So I'll start from the beginning. And when your first tenet of divorce, now to be clear, is this for men? Is this for men and women? Is this?
I wrote them with men in mind. So I think they probably can apply for women, but I may adjust my thinking for women.
Okay, so
they were written for men.
I wanted to set that foundation. So
Yeah.
The first one is divorce is war. The war is within ourselves.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on what that means?
When I was going through my divorce, I called it sitting, like I think of it as sitting on a couch. And a divorce is almost purely emotional. You had your life ripped apart. All of a sudden, you used to be a full-time father, and now you only see your kids every other weekend or every other week, whatever it is. You lose your house. All of a sudden, your paycheck isn't yours anymore. And there's this moment where you want to give in. Like, you're like, what am I even doing here? Like, what is this? What is this? What's happening? And I think the war is with yourself, to learn to embrace that challenge and become a better man. It can feel like you're reduced to an ATM because you're fighting over how much of your paycheck you're going to give to your ex. You're not a father anymore. You're an ATM. And a father's role is so incredibly important. It's one of the later tenets, that it shouldn't just be reduced to a financial figure. So your job as a father is to make sure that you're being that superhero, being that man that your kids need.
And so while this war is going on within oneself, is it also a war with the opposing party?
Not even a little bit. You, I advise a lot of men I speak to, give her what she needs. Money is the easiest thing to get back. Your time, your energy, your emotional well-being is not. That's the hard stuff. Go make some more money. Give her what she needs. Go like that.
Now, how do you manage that within your head and kind of wrap your head around that if you're in a scenario where perhaps the woman is being very vindictive and extraneously seeking more than what is needed and is purposefully trying to make it a war and get nasty, etc.?
Well, that was mine. You do your best and then let it go. I know that's the easiest thing to say, but that's all you can do. What else are you going to do? You're not going to. I genuinely believe family courts are tilted in favor of the mother. And even if you win, you're going to spend years of your life and hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting it. And what are you fighting over? $200, $300 a month? Screw it. Go make that $200, $300 a month. Go make 10 times that amount. Take that energy and put it into something bigger than yourself. Put that energy into your kids. You're robbing your kids of you because you're distracted all the time. The happier you are, the more in line with what you're doing, the more money you're going to make.
Yep.
So the war is not to bite on those hooks and to get sucked into those battles. She wants to have an argument. All right, you win. That's where I'm at today. If my ex starts an argument, okay, you're right. Because it's not worth my time. Not worth my energy.
When you were going through this, how old were your children? And I'm curious what their experience was throughout the divorce proceedings and how and what their mentality was about it.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part for me because they kept me going through it. It could have been the easiest thing in the world to give up. But I felt like I owed it to them. I could have been in that shitty relationship and continued that, but I felt like I owed it to them to demonstrate what a good relationship was. So what was their experience? They were 4 and 6 when we split. My oldest, and he was only 6 years old, but he was so on it. He said to me, "Isn't it great? There's no more arguing in the house anymore." And that was after I left. I was like, God damn. So I felt it was my job to become the best version of myself that I could. And my kids watched me rebuild from living at my parents' house to getting my own place, to traveling the world, to buying a house and then buying a second house that was even better than the first house, much better than the house I left with my ex, to, buying a nice car and they saw that upward growth. So I hope they saw it. I think, that was my intent. They saw me struggle at times. When it was the worst part, they saw, I would get angry. And sometimes, and I'm not proud of this, but I would yell at them because I didn't know what to do with the emotions. And I'm sure that was hard on them. But what I did with that is whenever I found myself doing that, I did the inner work so that I wasn't taking it out on them. because they were the innocent bystanders in the whole thing. What somebody gave me when I first had my oldest, he said the best piece of parenting advice I got was put your kids into everything, and what they like, really throw them into it. So for my oldest, that was hockey, and my youngest, it was he's kind of a storyteller, so I put him into improv. But what that did was it gave some sense of stability, and my youngest was in hockey as well. It gave them some sense of stability. Every Saturday and Sunday morning, they knew what they were doing. They were at hockey, they were at the rink, either they had a game or practice. And then my oldest, really took to it. He liked the competition and he liked the camaraderie and being in good shape. So, he moved up, he moved into rep competitive, and he was on the ice 5 days a week. And now he's got a, part-time job in hockey. I think that's pretty cool. And you can see that thread going back. But it was meant to give them some stability through the split. So I hope they saw that. I think they did. I know they saw some of my low points, and I hope they saw how I grew from it.
Wow. That's a beautiful thing that you did. Absolutely. Because, humans need some sort of semblance of stability in some sort of way. And children are even more susceptible to feeling lost and chaotic. They don't have even agency in the world to make a lot of their own decisions. So when they're facing their family structure entirely changing and it could feel like it's falling apart, and we have this biological desire for our parents to be together and to see that and to see a happy relationship, right? But in reality, that doesn't always present itself as a possibility. And it creates all these crazy psychological, unfortunate things within a child's head to watch the relationship of their mother and father decline and then sever. To provide an outlet for them to not only just get their butts out of the house sometimes, but also to experience the objective goals to work towards and progress in that activity that they were enjoying, and form bonds and form like strong structured teams and teammates or improv crews, whatever, to give them that experience was probably a very good move, man. So good on you. That was really cool.
It's nice seeing them. It was nice seeing them flourish. As my oldest got into rep hockey, he was on a really shitty team, unfortunately. So, but what he learned from it was the art of losing. And I think that was probably a lesson he needed, because he got used to winning. It's all lessons. And as long as you frame it like that, I think it's okay. One of the other things I did for my kids was I wanted them to understand that it wasn't their fault that we split. Sometimes that they might take that on. So I tried to reinforce that. I didn't blame their mom, but I wanted them to understand it wasn't their fault.
What do you think of couples that stay together, quote, for the kids, even though their marriage or relationship is atrocious and in a state of disrepair?
I have a friend who's doing that right now. He's a friend from university. So 20 years ago, his relationship is not in a good place at all. Quite frankly, she's abusive. She throws things at him, tells their kids, and they're both daughters. She tells them that she wishes she never married them. And she tells the kids that she's going to divorce him. It's absolutely brutal. I maybe there are some couples who can pull it off, but I don't think it's even those. You are demonstrating what, as parents, you're demonstrating what an acceptable relationship is. So even if you're demonstrating a relationship that you're holding, or if you're holding a relationship together to stay together for the kids, your kids are going to repeat that relationship unless they do the work to heal that in themselves. So I don't know why that feels selfish to me, because you're not doing the hard work to grow for your kids.
Yeah, I think there's two parties of people that say that phrase, like, oh, we're staying together for the kids. I think there's the people that are misinformed but good intentioned and genuinely think it is better for the children to see that and whatever. And then there's the people that use it as a cop-out and an excuse to push along doing the work that they need to do and actually making their own change. I think a lot of people just kind of use it as an excuse. What do you think?
They use it as an excuse. Yeah, 100%. Do the work, man. The relationship I have now is, I try to bring as much, well, we both try to bring as much playfulness into it as possible. So, she walks by, I smack her ass. We tease each other, like, we be playful as a couple. My oldest had his first relationship, I think at 16. And it was very much not that relationship. And it was a very toxic relationship, one that I would say mirrored my first relationship.
Yeah.
With my ex-wife. And it got so bad that she filmed herself burning one of his old hoodies and put it on Instagram. And then we had to call we had to go to the police because she was stalking him. And we had to get, an order against her to leave him alone. But that was a good moment of, be careful with who you choose. And then he said, and then he got in a new relationship and he was really cautious about the next girl he chose. And he went, see, she's just like my wife's name, Lindsay. This is my Lindsay. And he was really proud of that. And now they tease each other. I don't know if he smacks her ass. I don't really want to know. But he brings that playfulness in, and he said to me that, I like that part of your relationship, and I wanted to copy that.
That's amazing, because that highlights what it means to be a successful parent and set your children up for success. I think the best thing we could do as a parent is to just be a successful human, be an exemplary human in whatever regard that we're talking about. Model the relationships that you'd like to see your children have for their own sake. Model the financial health and relationship with money. Model the overall life philosophy. But I think there's so many parents out there that have failed in all these different regards, but then expect their children to do better when they have 0 point of reference other than them saying, do better, do good. Like that doesn't quite work like that. It's
no, it doesn't. You're going to screw up. You're going to screw up in front of your kids. You're going to yell at them in a moment when they don't deserve it. They're going to take it personally. You're going to screw up. As a parent, it's your job to own those moments and to do better. And it's your job. It's hard. It's hard owning those moments. It's hard demonstrating what a good relationship is. You might even argue with your wife over something in front of the kids, and you don't mean to, but you do.
Is that a bad thing even? Or should they see that that's a part of reality in a relationship sometimes?
No. Yeah, you should. I mean, don't be ridiculous about it. Don't like scream at each other at the top of your lungs, and don't be toxic in that argument. But you need to. They need to understand that a relationship is not all sunshine and flowers. That you have those moments where you're both in the trough together. You're both at lows. But that you have that bond that you can work your way out together. That goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think that's what makes a relationship, that commitment. And you need to show that to the kids, that you're together and you can work your way out together, that you as a couple are, as a couple, you are the core of any family. And I would argue that your relationship with your partner is more important than, not more important, but more core to the family than your relationship with a kid. Your kids are going to leave one day. And if you put your kids at the center of the relationship of a family, the family's going to fall apart when the kid moves out. So if you put your relationship at the center of the family, it can handle kids leaving. And it's incredibly hard when a kid leaves. It doesn't sound that difficult, but it absolutely is. And for the family to survive, you have to have that good relationship with your partner.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into even one of the next tenets of divorce that you have, in that you have to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yep.
A lot of people, divorce or otherwise, relationship or otherwise, father, mother, kids in the picture or otherwise, have this concept that if they are entirely selfless and act supposedly out of like, oh, let me put them first and do that for them and do that for them and sacrifice myself, then that's the best way I could love and treat someone.
Nope.
When it couldn't be farther from the truth, could it?
No. I think of it like a divorce. Think of it like a wounded animal, and you need to go lick your wounds for a while. And that means just going and taking care of yourself. And regain your footing. There's selfless, and that's where you put somebody else's needs first. And then there's assertive, where your needs are on par with somebody else's. And I'm forgetting the third one, but it's where you put your needs ahead of everybody else's. You need to put your needs on par with somebody else's.
Yeah. And it kind of relates a bit to one of the other tenets. I'm skipping around a bit.
Yeah.
And the crop a relationship bears is more than children. It grows men, women, societies, and shapes human nature. And the reason I thought of it and what you were just saying is because you're saying you can't put children at the very center of the relationship. There has to be more to it than that. And so that's why it made me think of this one. Do you want to expand on what this one kind of means to you? Because it's very profound. It's very prolific and huge. We're talking about shaping human nature at large. And this all comes down to how we are existing in our relationships. How is that extrapolate out?
That's a banger, isn't it?
It is a big one.
My friend helped me to come up with that. But the essence of it is that you're building the next generation. A father has an incredibly important role in his kids. And this blows my mind about society, that more mothers than fathers end up with custody of the kids. And there are all kinds of stats. And I know people aren't statistics, but there has to be some truth in the aggregate. kids without fathers in the home, it's something like 80% less. Sorry, families with fathers who are in the home or involved in the kids' upbringing, it's something like an 80% reduction in incarcerations, something like a 70% less rate in teenage pregnancy. And it just 90% less. And I'm not, I might have these numbers messed up. The numbers are on my website under The Powerful Father. But the idea is, if you take fathers away from the family is much weaker. And then you're basically creating criminals. You're basically creating kids who don't finish high school. You're creating kids who are having teenage pregnancies. How is that good for society? So even if your family splits up and a father's role is so impactful that it can be a couple hours a week, as long as his kids see him as a Superman, he is going to impact their lives and they will do better. It's those numbers are those stats are apply to that kid. So meaning they don't go to prison as much. They finish high school. They take fewer drugs. I think it's as simple as that. I know it's a big statement, but you're raising that next generation. You're pushing kids to do better in a family.
Yeah. So when you say the crop that a relationship bears is more than children, got it. Okay, so I was misinterpreting it a bit. You're saying it's more than just children, in that those children are going to grow up to be the men and women within society and within humanity later. That's what it was meaning. Okay.
Yeah. How are you taking it?
I was taking it as there's the children, but then it also grows the man in the relationship, the woman in the relationship, and shapes the society around that relationship based on how they were behaving and existing within it as well.
I guess it's a pretty good line, and you can interpret it multiple ways. But I could see it that as well as, you have your family, and they will inspire other families if you're living an amazing life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the way the ripple effect of just being how you are collectively affects the world around you, whether it's on an energetic or an exemplary level.
My oldest has a group chat with his friends. I think there's like 20 of them in it. And the name of the group chat is Job One, Everybody Get a Job. And he's had that for, I don't know, 3-4 years. And then everybody got a job. Everybody in the group chat had a job. And then they changed the name of the group chat to Go Get 2 Jobs. So, and I think he was, one of the ringleaders of that group chat. The point of the story is, he's ambitious and he's pushing his friends to do better with their lives and to get out of their comfort zone and do something productive with it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, just naturally existing in a certain way, it has an influence on those around you. So hopefully we're using that power for good and not perpetuating the cycles of bullshit in the world. It's our duty to society to just be emitting good nature, human.
Inhale the darkness, breathe out the light.
Exactly.
I think I want to believe that if you are acting on your best self, I think that is doing good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible to be acting on your highest self and doing bad in the world. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
If you're perpetuating that bullshit, then you are living those stories of whatever it is, greed, hate, anger, depression, whatever that is. You're living in those stories. But if you can get rid of those stories, then you're acting on your higher self. And I don't think it's even possible to be a bad person or do bad at that level.
Yep. By extension, you will be doing well for humanity because perhaps that is the highest level of existence as an individual at
100%.
inner level. There's one tenet that I found particularly interesting because I'm not sure if I agree with this one. It's that a father's presence in his children's lives is objectively beneficial. And the reason I push back on this one a little bit in my own head is for the same kind of reason as like the unconditional love thing. I think perhaps a father's presence in his children's lives is objectively beneficial if that father has positive qualities and traits and whatnot that he is able to then bring in. But what makes it subjective is, well, it's dependent on if he has those traits that he can provide. Do you think that there's not men out there that it's probably better off that they're nowhere near their children?
I'm speaking to the men who want to do better. If you are one of those fathers who it's better off that you're not there, then no, but I think I like to think that that's a minority.
Yeah. Yeah. Good caveat.
So if you qualify it too much, it's going to turn into mush and not mean anything. So I was always taught to, when you write something like that, to, come in strong.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So yeah, for the right audience, that's exactly the right message to ingrain in their heads. And so I'm wondering,
and maybe that'll change the mind of somebody who's maybe not been the best role model as a father. Maybe I'm casting a spell there for them to do better.
I see what you did there. I really enjoy the philosophies that you have towards relationships, life, children. You've obviously given a lot of thought into it. And now what you're doing is helping others navigate their journey as well. And so I'm very curious, what does the process of working with you look like? What kind of men are coming to work with you, and how are you guiding them through this transformative experience of divorce in their lives? What's the I don't know what a divorce coach does even. What does it look like?
I'm still working that out myself. The divorce coach is relatively a newer thing for me. I've been coaching for the last 18 months or so. And that's been the idea with coaching divorced men is they're walking down the steps of the divorce court and they've just been eviscerated. And they're like, what the hell am I doing with my life now? Where do I go now? The idea is to navigate those emotions, to have somebody who pushes them forward and figure out what their new life is going to look like. And to realize, and the real work underneath it all is realize that there's an opportunity here to make an even better life than what they had before. It's 100% that's what I did. But I don't think that's the case for most men. I think their lives are often worse.
Yeah.
And it might appear that it's better. They might make more money, but often they might be drinking. They might be chasing women. They might, they're chasing that feeling of that hedonism. Whereas I want them to face head on those difficult emotions, to face the difficult decisions. And the role I'm providing is to be next to them and helping them through it.
I see. And is it only post the divorce proceedings that you would see yourselves coming into play? Would you see yourselves coming into play as a coach kind of leading up to divorce and figuring out going through the process? Or are you looking to be the mental cleanup crew after it's gone down to how are we shuffling moving forward?
I think I'm best served after the divorce. It's that moment where, like I said, walking down the steps, like what even just happened? Where am I now? Like they're discombobulated. Maybe they're depressed. When they're going through it, often it's like it's these they're having these little battles of my ex wants this and I don't want to give her that and this and that and this and that, and they're in the midst of it. They're not really open to making the changes. After a divorce, you have no choice but to work on yourself. Your next few years are set. A judge has made that decision for you, or you signed a piece of paper that you're giving up the house or whatever your situation is. You're only seeing your kids every other weekend. How do you make the best of it is the question I ask. How do you become better given your circumstances? And that to me is a really interesting question. And I think that's where the need is. When they're going through it, they're fighting. And often I find that the men are stubborn and they don't want to listen. They want to win. But it's after they've been knocked down a few pegs that they're more open to listening. They're at a low in their life, but they're more open to listening to what possibilities there are.
It's like in the heat of the battle, it's not time to think about a new battle plan. You're just doing the thing. But in the rubble afterwards, then it's like, okay, you're even more open to receiving new ideas because you need something.
I'm open to working with men before that, but I don't find many are open to it. They think they're going to win. They all think they're going to be the exception. And they're all right. Their wife cheated on them and they're going to get them and this and that. And I've learned just to play the odds. You're probably not going to win. You're not going to get that moment of telling your ex what a bitch she is. You're not going to have that moment of satisfaction. Let it go and focus on yourself. And usually they're not willing to listen to that until after the divorce.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And so something else that I saw you do on your website is the meditation cave. Can you talk about that and what that is?
Yeah. In terms of, I was going to make a video on this. In terms of, so divorce is such an emotional battleground that you have a few options. You can do nothing and you can push those emotions down. I guarantee you they're going to come out at some point and it's not going to be in a way you want them to. That's going to be the moment you yell at your kids, kick the dog, scream at your new girlfriend, whatever it is. So I don't recommend that. Second option is therapy or counseling. I personally did not find counseling all that useful. It's one of those things that's incredibly slow and I didn't get many insights out of it. And then you get into the spirituality And I've got some techniques that guide you inside your body and you can release those emotions. I found that incredibly useful. That was the coach I worked with. And then the step beyond that, and I don't think a lot of men who are going through a divorce are ready for this at this moment. But the most powerful thing I found was meditation. And I really like meditation because it forces you to shift your mindset, and it shifts it all on your own. And the way I like to think about meditation is that you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, but there's this third thing there. And it's what the way I was taught, it was you're actually presence. And if you start to meditate, you learn that your emotions are here, your thoughts are here, wherever they are, and you can just allow them to pass by. You can detach from both of those. So the way somebody taught me was that you're the sky. Emotions and thoughts, they're clouds. So you just let them pass. So meditation, my meditation cave teaches people how to meditate, but that is more advanced. It's only for, someone who's willing to do that work. I don't know that I would have been when I was going through it. I run it every Sunday. And I get a handful of guys showing up. Well, sometimes I don't get anybody. Sometimes I get one guy. Sometimes I get 10 guys. But the intention is, and I've seen big shifts from some of these guys. One guy is going through this legal proceeding, and it sounds horrible, but he's so much calmer now. I see a difference in his eyes. Just because he's realizing, yeah, I got emotions. They suck sometimes it sucks to feel it, but it'll pass. When you're going through a divorce, and this is why I say it's hard, because yeah, you are the sky, but sometimes the clouds cover up the sky so much that you can't even see the blue through it. Your whole And so they're like, I don't want to meditate. And I understand that. But the philosophy behind it is get into the present moment as much as possible. So even if you're not meditating, get into the present as much as possible. Sports is great for that. Boxing is great for that. It's almost impossible to box and not be in the present moment because you're going to get your ass kicked. So if you're not ready for meditation yet, do something that gets you into the present moment. When I was going through my divorce, I played squash and I would hammer the shit out of the ball. I would pretend it was my ex's face and I would just hit the ball as hard as I could, which is a terrible tactic in squash. But it made me feel better. And it worked those emotions up and out of you. You have the idea behind the meditation that I do is we all have these centers in our body that digest emotions. So it's just a matter of bringing them to the surface and allowing the body to naturally digest those emotions. So if you can surface these emotions as much as possible, the body should naturally take care of it. But it's finding where those emotions are and being able to bring them up. That's the trick. But again, be in the present moment as much as possible. That's the point behind the meditation cave is to be here and now.
That's beautiful. And it's something that you're offering for free, I see on your website. So that's amazing as well. It's truly wonderful to see avenues where men can connect and work on themselves, side by side like that. Now, that's also strictly for men going through divorce proceedings or have been, because it seems pretty ambiguous like that. Those seems like awesome things that anyone could take advantage of. But
I think everybody should. The world would be a much better place if everybody meditated.
Yeah.
My intention is not just for men going through a divorce. If you want to come. come to the meditation. I have to believe it'll help. That's my way of giving back to the world.
That's awesome.
And I get men who don't even have kids. They're not even married, showing up. So it's not just for men going through a divorce.
That's awesome, man. That's a very beautiful thing that you offer. So thank you on behalf of the world for offering that. I want to check in with you on time. We have around a minute in our scheduled session. Do you need to close it at that hard minute, or how are you looking?
Actually, no, I've blocked off the next hour. I figured I'd need some time to recover after this, so I'm good.
Cool, man. Cool. Yeah, I had two more pretty interesting questions. I'm interested to hear what you think about.
Sure.
And then we can close off after that, or if there's anything else you wanted to do or share, we could toss those in as well. But I'll make sure you have your recuperation time as well.
I appreciate that.
Awesome. So thinking back to, again, the concept you were providing about the different overlaps of a relationship being entirely overlapped or separate or overlapping 30%, etc. It brought the question to mind of, when should a couple, if ever, move in together and decide to cohabitate in a relationship? Because that, of course, affects the natural balance of how overlapped they are. It's a huge thing. And when do you think is the appropriate time to make that move?
Oh man, you're gonna screw up no matter what. I don't know that there's a right answer for that. You can get into religious, but I'm not a religious guy at all. I'm spiritual, but not religious. I think what would my answer be? I think you have to be. It can't be, I want to be enveloped by the other person. I don't think you should move in together because you can't get enough of the other person. I think you should move in together if, yes, you enjoy each other's company. You still have, I think you need some practicality here. You enjoy each other's company. You can see your life working together. And that there's some practicality behind it. Maybe you save some rent. I don't know. But I know others would disagree with that you should be married and committed to each other before you do that. I think I see moving in together as a trial run before being married. That's how I see it. Maybe it's because I'm not strictly religious, that I don't think it's a sin or anything like that. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if there's not a hard answer, then there's not a hard metric answer. It's I agree. It has to be something that is uniquely assessed for every particular scenario.
I think it takes some maturity, and you shouldn't just move in together to, like I said, because it feels good. You move in together because it's the next step in the relationship. You want to see if it's going to work in the long run. You want to see if, if the other person snores every night, or if it annoys you that they leave the dishes out and don't wash them before going to bed. Those little things add up.
And so, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, that's it.
Your answer kind of ties into my other question as well, and some of the things that you were just mentioning. And you say that you are spiritual, but not religious. I've seen the word God used on your website, but more in the oh, thank God I got a divorce kind of way. What do you think is the role of God or spirituality in some form for the success of a relationship? Is it imperative? Is it nice but not necessary? Is it somewhere else?
To me, so to be clear, what I mean by God is the universe. And what I mean by the universe is someone who brings the balance I talk about. So the yin and yang, who enforces that. So I think I don't know. I have a pat answer for this. There's seeing God is seeing that balance, that yin and yang. I think it's important that both people are on the same page about what they mean by God or religion or spirituality. And then if in my relationship, when we're having those low moments, the other person helps the other ones to see the yin and yang, so to see that balance. So I would say that's how I see spirituality in my relationship. That's the role it has.
Kind of like a unifying behind the scenes force that is driving each person, and so it could kind of keep everyone on the same page. Is that kind of
I think there's a force that balance. The force is the universe, is God, and that balances the good and bad. Does that make sense? You with me there?
Yeah.
So in my relationship, we help each other see that balance.
Do you think
and that's how we bring spirituality into it?
Do you think a relationship can thrive if the concept of God or the universe or spirituality at large is entirely missing from one person or both?
I don't know. Considering my first relationship was without God and this one has it, no. It's there was no higher purpose behind my last relationship. There was nothing that drove that relationship. There was nothing that like, why be better? There's no God there. Why bother? Why spend any effort? Like, and oh, I'm depressed. Why? There's no why or what behind it.
Yeah.
If you have some unifying force, like you called it, depression becomes about you're not living your purpose. God gave you a purpose to live. And if you're depressed, it's because you're not living it. And then I think your relationship suffers because you are not living your best self as your best self. What even is your best self? Who gave you that? I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's too hard of a question. Let's watch Breaking Bad or whatever. But if you have that North Star of your best self, because that's what God put here, then I think that makes your relationship better. Because then you're both striving to do better.
Very well said. Very well said. I definitely agree. Jeff, we've said a lot of very profound things today. Out of them all, or if there's anything else that comes to mind, what's the one thing that you'd really want the men listening to this podcast to remember and take with them? It could be about relationships, about life as a man at large, about divorce, about marriage. What's just the one lesson that you really, really want to drive home?
There's two reasons we face a challenge, and a divorce is one of the biggest challenges, and probably why I'm coaching it, because it's so interesting. There's two reasons you face a challenge. One is that you learn to master it, whatever that situation is. there's going to be a lesson inside your divorce. For me, it was learning to master emotions inside myself and really need to level that up. And then the second one is a challenge will send you in a direction that you weren't going in, and it highlights that way for you. There's this concept of the feather, the brick, and the truck. And God, universe, what you want to call it, first will come to you with a lesson in the form of a feather. And it's just really light. And often we just go, yeah, whatever. Then the universe chucks a brick at us, and it might give us a goose egg or a black eye. Often we ignore it. But then guess what? After that, you get a truck. And you can't ignore that. For so many men, the truck is the divorce. And there's something inside of it for you to learn. For everybody, it's different. But that's what I help men to do, is find that thing they need to learn in the divorce. Whatever that thing is. For me, again, it was learning to master my emotions and learn that if I, rather than sit back and let life challenge me, I go after things. That's another concept that would be helpful for men to know. Everybody is going to be challenged by something, and you can either let God, the universe, decide what that challenge is, or you go challenge yourself. And if God chooses it, it's going to come in the way that you least want. But if you challenge yourself and then really listen to what the challenge is, really tune into that, you don't have to get that truck. You can catch it at the feather state. So that's what I want men to know, to tune into that. Oh, and one more part on that is emotions are a fantastic, as men, so often we ignore it, and we have to go into the burning building to save the kids. That's our job. We have to ignore our emotions and go into battle. But emotions give us feedback on where we're at in life. And if we can tune into those emotions, they're going to give us so much feedback. And when we listen to that, I don't mean be driven by it. Don't be driven by your sadness. Don't sit on the couch because you're sad. What is going on that I am sad? What is going on that I'm depressed? Oh, I'm not living my purpose. I haven't challenged myself. I haven't gone to the gym, so I'm depressed. Get out of that depression. Listen to what the core of it is, and go do that.
Love it. A fantastic message, man. I'm fired up, so I hope the audience is too. Jeff.
Amazing.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Zach.
This is awesome.